Like that burning sensation that you just can't shake, we are back after what seems like a long vacation, and I was away doing orientation and all that good stuff, and thanks to Aaron, who filled in and did such a great job. Today, Billionaires in Space, Killer Robots, Kaseya, SolarWinds, Charming Kitten, Schneider Electric, and CISA reports. All this and Jason Wood on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News. With the skills gap increasing, it's more important than ever to train your staff effectively and efficiently. Offensive Security provides training for your organization designed by the same minds behind Kali Linux. Here are two recent offerings from OffSec. OffSec Academy gives you the chance to earn industry-leading OSCP certification with dedicated one-on-one mentoring. You can also try Proving Grounds Enterprise, created exclusively by Offensive Security's InfoSec experts for highly realistic simulated networks. Visit securityweekly.com/offsec to learn more.
In our continual efforts to diversify here at Security Weekly, we're now selling a line of scented candles. Some of them are meat scented, like we have carne asada here. We also have a line of host scented candles that smell like all your favorite hosts. So if you want to get a whiff of Jeff Mann in your bedroom, well, here's your chance. So check those out on our website. I'm just kidding, but I don't know. They might be selling them. Anyway, but if you want one, let me know. Kaseya had promised that they would patch the virtual server administrator platform that REvil used to launch. While I was not here talking to you, there was a lot of stuff that went on. But Kaseya had, of course, this whole business. REvil used these exploits to launch their supply chain attack back in the first part of July. And today, and on the 11th of July, they did manage to commit a patch for the 3 0 days that resulted in all those attacks. So REvil did launch that attack on about 5,000 sites on the 2nd of July, and by the 5th, over 22 countries said they were being targeted by the REvil attacks, which were all based on the 0 days in the VSA for Kaseya. So the article does go on to document a sort of more interesting thing about this, that Kaseya actually knew about these vulnerabilities all the way back in at least April, because the Dutch Institute for Vulnerability Disclosure had informed them of 7 separate vulnerabilities in the product. So if you're using Kaseya, be sure and get that patch and patch up now, like now. If not, if you can't go back and use the TARDIS and go back and patch earlier. SolarWinds was alerted to additional vulnerabilities in the ServU managed file transfer and SFTP products that are in SolarWinds, and this was found by Microsoft. Microsoft provided proof of concept code and other documents to the company and demonstrated the ability to run arbitrary code with privileges on the SolarWinds platform. And then this is not going back into the past to tell you about stuff that had already happened. According to Microsoft, the current threat seems to be a sole actor. So this was being done in the wild, so they actually documented that as well. But it was limited to a small subset of customers of SolarWinds. SolarWinds said they don't know how many customers are being affected by this latest vulnerability, and they did issue a hotfix this week. SolarWinds said that this did not appear to be related to the earlier massive vulnerability. So, when your whole world is sliding down a long, greasy razor blade, it's always fun that, when Microsoft calls and says, hey, here's some more vulnerabilities, guys, just in case it wasn't bad enough. Since we're doing Bug Day anyway, 3 more vulnerabilities were found in Cisco Business Process Automation and the Web Security Appliance. So it's been a tough year for Cisco stuff too. But basically, several of these vulnerabilities would allow remote attackers to exfiltrate sensitive data or just take over the system entirely. One of the bugs actually allows someone that's logged in as a valid user to execute unauthorized commands and be root. And the other one allows a logged in user to access the logging subsystem, which would let you retrieve sensitive information from those Cisco devices. These bugs affect BPA prior to version 3.1, which sounds like a long time ago, but as we all know, our Cisco stuff tends to be very, very persistent and doesn't get updated that often. So if you are running those older versions of BPA, you may seriously want to consider updating it, or trying to consider how do you mitigate this. Configuration management and the Async OS on the WSA, so that's their web security appliance. Basically, if you're a logged in user, you can perform command injections and get a root shell. So that one is due to insufficient validation of XML input for the web interface. So another one of those web interface problems that sort of keeps coming back to haunt a lot of different router and other hardware manufacturers, because they probably never intended for those interfaces to be exposed to the outside world. All right, more bugs. Let's just do bugs. Schneider Electric, Modicon PLCs, or Modicon, I don't know how you say that, Modicon. I actually have one of those PLCs, but has a problem which is now being called Modipone. Modipone? I don't know. Anyway, and it was found by Armis, who's an IoT security firm. The vulnerability requires network access to the PLC, so that means you actually are there with it. The attack Armis detailed involved a whole collection of vulnerabilities that are related to Modbus. So if you don't know Modbus, well, boy, oh boy, Modbus is an old protocol. It was an ICS primarily protocol that was used for networking in SCADA. And you saw Modbus around a lot in these sort of proprietary private networks and other industrial systems. Modbus doesn't use any sort of encryption, and it doesn't even really have protocols for authentication built into the stack, since it was one of those things that the idea of it was, our OT network is sacrosanct. Nobody ever touches it. Nobody ever goes there. Nothing can get to it. It's completely isolated from everything else, and therefore there's no threat. You had to climb in through some convenient human-sized air duct with your Zippo lighter, hang from some wires, and type in commands on a keyboard over a moat filled with electric eels. Rabid meth head electric eels. And now you've got the plot of the next Mission Impossible movie. But then along came the modern age, and people started connecting their OT networks to the IT networks more inappropriately. And all of a sudden, Tom Cruise got to hang up his little wires and sit on his couch with a laptop eating deep-fried electric eels and chips. But, at the same time, all of a sudden, these IoT devices and other connections to those OT networks started violating this traditional model, and that meant everybody could get into the OT. Modbus does have a secure version, but Schneider had not implemented it for these devices. So some of the problems have been patched, but as we all know, OT networks are very far down a long tunnel of patches for some people. So if you are using these devices, you may want to check out your versions and security on them, as well as patch them if possible. But it is very difficult and challenging, I know, for industrial people to actually get in there and start putting these patches in place, even if the patches exist. So mitigate is the word for the day. Operation Spoofed Scholars. So not a bug this time. Operation Spoofed Scholars. I like the term so much that I couldn't resist it. Sometimes I feel like a spoofed scholar. But Operation Spoofed Scholar is a campaign that's being conducted by TA453, who has a whole like all other threat actors now. They have these massive lists of names that they're used. This one's called Charming Kitten. So if you haven't heard of them before, but you probably have, Charming Kitten is reputedly affiliated with Iran. It's believed that TA453 is a division of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. And the campaign, basically what they were doing was something that they had done before. They created fake academics. So, they make up names, and Dr. Sloppy G. Farnham or whatever, and then they start engaging with their targets to try to get them to participate in a fake conference. Now, I get a lot of calls from people from China in particular inviting me to come speak at conferences, and some of those are pseudo-legitimate because I've actually done it before, and it was like they really just, you want to go to China, and they're willing to let you come to a conference there. But these guys were really taking it to the nth degree. They had chat rooms, phone calls, video conferences, all this stuff being used to connect these fake scholars with the targets. One of the fake personas that they were using was listed as Dr. Hans Bjorn Kindle, a senior teaching and research fellow at SOAS University in London. So this person was engaging with other people, and the targets were senior think tank employees, journalists, and academic professors, particularly people that were focused on the Middle East. And they went after about 10 different organizations. The primary approach that they used was to send credential harvesting emails, but the live action techniques were also used to gather additional information about the target. Charming Kitten targeted senior medical professionals in the U.S. and Israel earlier this year in a very, very similar campaign to this. They went out, they did the very same kind of stuff. So if you have people on your staff that are doing, these kind of things, be sure you let them know about this kind of conference stuff, because you do get a lot of these calls. CISA released its 2020 risk and vulnerability assessments this week. Each of the 37 risk and vulnerability assessments that they used in their study, they went ahead and provided the MITRE ATT&CK frameworks for it, which is really nice, and that ties it into the assessments. Just briefly, there's a whole lot of statistics here, but in the 37 assessments they reported, phishing was used to establish initial access in 49% of the reports. So it's a pretty interesting report if you want to think about how to align your security posture given all the paths that they were reporting in this particular release from last year. It does include mitigations for the top attacks that they found and detailed information about how the attacks develop. So they have like a whole kill chain for all these things. I did put a link in the report to that report in the wiki. And on the "is it Skynet yet" scene, Facebook, Google, and others are all racing to control the world of AI, robots in particular. AI robots, ML robots, those cool dog robots like the one in Metalhead from Black Mirror that chase you through a dystopian Icelandic landscape. But humanity just keeps on surviving because our thumbs allow us to climb trees or something like that. I think that was the plot of I don't know if that was the same Black Mirror, but there's another Black Mirror like that. But the designer gave the dogs hooves instead of giant talons, which is what I would have put on them. And although I heard that that's in version 2.3 of the Facebook bot, which is nicknamed the Zuckernator. And Richard Branson says that the Virgin bot 3.9 will have robo-hornet swarms. So who knows what these guys are going to come up with next. But one thing they did find, that was why I reported the story, was that the robots, when they were trying to learn to walk and they were trying to teach them, they were, programmers trying to teach people how to do something, how that goes. But they basically watched human toddlers learn how to walk. So by making mistakes, falling down, getting cut up and all this kind of stuff, the robots actually use this same kind of method then. And, of course, this did lead to me imagining some sort of Facebook farm place where there's lots of babies and toddlers and some kind of giant warehouse that are being watched over by robots that look a lot like Bender. Maybe that was just me dreaming, but I don't know. It was something like that. But the programmers found that using those human approaches led to much faster learning. So, you can't go wrong with evolution. And, and what could go wrong anyway, right? I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords. When we return, Jason Wood joins with commentary. Stick around.
For teams looking to inject some security into the DevOps lifecycle, the Uptick Security Analytics platform offers complete security observability for your cloud workloads, including hosts, VMs, containers, and micro VMs. Uptick analyzes builds in development and at runtime for real-time detection of misconfigurations, vulnerabilities, and malicious behavior. Security Weekly listeners can sign up for a free 2-week trial by visiting securityweekly.com/upticks.
Speaking of killer robots and nanobees, when we go to sell meat-scented candles here at Security Weekly, we want to use the smoothest hands in the hand modeling business. And this guy has modeled for everyone from a Gucci finger glove to even wearing Tesla's now defunct electro fingers. His hands are insured by Lloyd's of London, and even his pinkies are considered national treasures in the United States. He is none other than Justin.
I lost it this time.
He's actually Jason Wood, but, I kind of blew it there. So hi, Jason.
Hey, Doug. Normally I'm able to hold it in until you get through it, but that time I lost it on the...
Yeah, me too. I was like, okay, this is too weird.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be back with you. Good to be here with Doug again. It's fun hanging out with Aaron. It's also nice to be back to the surprise of the week introduction. I was looking through, some of the things that were talked about this week, and I saw this headline that didn't sound terribly shocking to me in some ways, but it still provoked some thoughts I thought I'd share. So it's on the Daily Swig, the Portswigger blog. Russian hacking group APT28 conducting brute force attacks against organizations worldwide. And you look at that and you think, well, yeah, I guess so. That makes sense. And, the only thing I thought was inherently interesting about this headline, it goes against the mystique of these advanced actors, state-sponsored adversaries. They're doing something as mundane as brute force password attacks. But honestly, when I was thinking about this, it's like, well, this is still something here to talk about with this, because they're doing it, everybody's doing it, and they're doing it because it still works all the time. This is something that's just been a really common attack. It's been the noise of the internet for decades, and yet I still see intrusions happening all the time with this, and they're very effective. There are a few interesting things about the blog posts and how APT28, or Fancy Bear as I like to call them, does these operations. One, they're using things like Kubernetes, big Kubernetes cluster to spin up nodes out there all over the place. They're pushing the attack traffic through Tor networks. They're using commercial VPN providers so they can pop up in different places, and that allows them to keep their infrastructure up and going if somebody decides to just do the obvious and block an IP address or something like that. But it was kind of interesting to think about this, because as you look at this type of attack vector, if you've ever stood up any type of host on the internet that requires authentication, you see lots of brute force attacks occurring in your logs. You'll see a lot of it's just, again, part of the noise of the internet. But why I wanted to bring this up is because I see it so often. I see intrusions every week where ransomware operators on the criminal side are getting into environments because somebody hung RDP, or even worse, SMB, out on the internet, and somebody just starts brute forcing away at it, and eventually an attacker gets in. Now, some folks may look at that and say, "Oh, that shouldn't happen. They should turn on account lockout or what have you. Don't we have password complexity for that?" Well, yeah, I guess, but they go after the local accounts, and local accounts don't authenticate against Active Directory. The built-in administrator count doesn't typically get disabled automatically. So these are the accounts that are constantly being attacked for that. They get into the system, they start to leverage that to either spread or just ransom that individual system themselves. So I looked at it and thought, this is really vanilla, but it still works. And it works really well. We talked about all of the different types of password attacks that are out there, and the adversaries just keep using them. And so as far as somebody like Fancy Bear, who is a state-sponsored adversary group, they go after organizations that are of interest to them in their mission. Everybody is doing this, and it's still really, really effective. And so this is why I wanted to bring this up. This is an issue that we are, as an industry, I guess. Organizations, I'm sure, are doing fine on this in some areas, but other organizations aren't. They have this vulnerability of password guessing, and I picture people looking at it and saying, "Well, yeah, it's just part of the noise of being on the internet. It's not a big deal. We won't worry about it." Somebody's brute forcing against an SSH server or FTP or RDP, and it's okay. But what happens when they get it? Well, somebody just logs in. Now they're on the system. They look like a regular user. They didn't exploit anything. There's really nothing to go on here to tell you that, hey, you now have a bad guy on this system, at least immediately. So, this is just one of those areas where it's just like this continues to happen all the time, and that's why I wanted to bring this up. We have defenses that are much better than simply depending on the idea of blocking an IP address, right? That's not going to be an adequate defense. We have things out there that we've had it for years. Things like multi-factor authentication and newer technologies like zero trust allow us to raise the bar on this type of vulnerability, make it more difficult for the adversary to get in. Now, notice I say more difficult. Yeah, something like multi-factor authentication may stop your script kiddie e-crime actor from getting into your environment because they can't brute force a password, so they move on to the next target. They're very opportunistic. They're just looking for the next ransom. It's not a big deal to them. If you have somebody like Fancy Bear or a sophisticated criminal group coming after you, obviously they're going to keep going. This doesn't work for us. Okay, we'll move on to the next step. So it's hard to say that, just using multi-factor authentication will end this problem. No, that's not the case, but you will raise the bar and make it more difficult. They'll have to bring a better game to try and get in. So let's just not make it easy for them. So this is something for you to, if you have this in your organization where you have similar weaknesses like this, and you may be hearing this from other people in your company saying, no, we don't need to worry about this because, hey, yeah, brute force attacks happen all the time. It's not a big deal. It's just part of being on the internet. Yeah, it is, but it is successful. So a lot of these ransomware intrusions and stuff like that are a result of simple mistakes like this, basically giving the attacker an easy way in. And that's, then we get into the weak passwords and all the other stuff that goes with that. Regardless, we don't have to make it easy for them. We can make them work at least a little bit more. And, if they're working harder, they have to do more things that potentially give us more insight into it coming. Now, like Doug said, you've got the issue of phishing emails and other things that go on as well. So you have to keep going with this. But go ahead and take a look at it. There's a link in the article that goes to the notification put out by the NSA, FBI. Who else was it? National Center, Internet Security Center, I think it is. National Cybersecurity Center, which I believe is British organization. Take a look at it, see if this is something that maybe you can use as some ammunition for your environment. Kind of the end of my rant, but again, this is working still. It seems stupid, and it kind of is, but it keeps working, so the actors are going to keep using it. So just don't let it work against you and your organization.
All right. Thank you, Jason. I agree. That's always been the case, but they're still going to keep doing it, and brute forcing works, so they will. Finally, billionaires could focus on saving the world, but why do that when you can be a Bond villain? And the latest stunt by Ernst Blofeld, Spectre is trying to build a takeaway curry shop in space or something. Anyway, Blofeld, Branson, Musk, Bezos are all vying to be the first Bond villain to conquer something in outer space. Richard Branson rode along in a high-flying rocket plane to about 80 kilometers of height this week. And according to Jeff Bezos, this is not actual space. It's just the edge of space. He's just edging space. No, I actually made that up. Bezos didn't say that. Please don't have the Amazon thugs come hurt me again. But anyway, it won't be that long before one of these billionaires is in orbit and Amazon delivery becomes a ballistic launch system that's operating from the moon. So you just when you want that box of vitamins, they just fire it at you from the moon, and it comes crashing down and hopefully hits that net you've set up in the front yard and not say the main part of your house. But Howard Hughes did all this stuff way back in the 30s, and look how he ended up. I could see Elon locked in a hotel penthouse saving urine in bags. I could see that. It might be interesting. It could be like a reality TV show, but billionaires, what are you going to do? Elon, call me. But anyway, don't forget to check out our line of host-scented candles. This one is Joff Thayer. That's a good Joff. We'll be back on Friday with the Security Weekly News wrap-up.